This episode of Dan 3.0 is brought to you by the HP DV7T with Beats Audio and the Smart Intel Core i5 processor.
Hello, Pogo Tribe. In my last video, I talked about how this whole Michael Aranda Formspring situation was really a private thing that needed to be dealt with between me and Michael and no one else. I thought that simply acknowledging that there was an issue and letting you know that it was being dealt with would be enough and that we'd be able to move on with Dan 3.0. On that front, however, I was way wrong. Based on comments, the like to dislike ratio, the fact that I've been losing subscribers, it is clear that this sideshow has rattled the Pogo Tribe to its core and that we're not going to be able to move forward with Dan 3.0 in any meaningful way until the air has been cleared. I still think that everyone would have been better served had none of this become public, and I still have mixed feelings about sharing my side of the story, but at this point, I don't really feel like I have any other viable options. So let's start at the very beginning. Michael was brought on board as Dan 3.0's editor because, to make this project everything that I wanted it to be, I needed some help on the technical side of things. He flew out to my hometown of Lincoln, Nebraska, began editing. Immediately the quality of the episodes improved and everything seemed peachy keen. Now, as soon as Michael was brought on board, we knew that we were going to have to figure out a more permanent living situation than just chilling at my mom's house. So we brainstormed a variety of options and ultimately decided that we'd go to Michael's place in Los Angeles for a while and see if maybe living in Southern California made sense. When we got out there, though, I felt our working relationship take a subtle turn for the worse. It wasn't anything overt, but episodes were taking him longer to edit. Sometimes he wasn't waking up until noon. We were late publishing most of them, and as a result, I was taking some heat. Now, this is where I made a mistake. I never spoke to Michael about these issues, and I should have. I've already apologized to Michael for this privately, and now I'm doing it publicly. Seriously, I am sorry about the lack of communication on my part. Anyway, I didn't fire him then, and I didn't have any intention of firing him then. He was still a huge help, and we continued moving forward with the project. The longer I stayed in Southern California, however, the more I realized that I really didn't want to live in Southern California. I was thinking that San Francisco made more sense. I like the area better. It's where Revision 3 is based, but when I told this to Michael, I felt like our working relationship was kicked down another notch. Again, it wasn't anything overt. Michael never flat out said no to the idea of moving anywhere other than Southern California, but he was noticeably unenthused. It felt to me like Michael wasn't gung-ho about stepping out of his comfort zone, which was a pretty big red flag considering that Dan 3.0 is a project that's all about stepping out of your comfort zone. No matter, things moved forward. I eventually decided to let you guys decide where I should drop the anchor for the rest of Dan 3.0, and we began preparing pretty intensely for this road trip. Then, out of the blue, Michael let me know that he had agreed to produce the band Chameleon Circuit's next album, would be taking a week off in the middle of November to begin working on it, and would again need an entire month off in early 2011. Now, the decision to produce their album was Michael's to make. That's perfectly fine. The fact, however, that my only employee had just informed me that in order to continue working for me, I would have to be okay with him taking over 10% of the remainder of this project off to work on something completely unrelated, left me wondering if I wouldn't just be better off hiring somebody else entirely. I decided, though, to hold off on that decision for a while and just concentrate on making this road trip happen. Now, the initial road trip plan was that I would fly back to Lincoln, meet up with Danielle, pick up my car, drive back to Los Angeles, pick up Michael and Casey, embark on this adventure, and make it back to Los Angeles in time for Michael to begin working on Chameleon Circuit's album. Everyone seemed to be on board with this plan. Everything seemed to be peachy, and then the day before I was to fly back to Lincoln, we got a piece of fantastic news. At the last minute, Ford heard about this road trip and oh so graciously offered to sponsor it by supplying us with a Fiesta. Great! I decided to still go home to Nebraska to see my family and meet up with Danielle. I didn't know exactly where we'd go from there, but figured that we'd just play it by ear. Getting all of our ducks in a row, however, to make the Ford deal work required pushing the road trip back a week, which meant that we wouldn't be able to make it back to Los Angeles in time for Michael to begin working on Chameleon Circuit's album, which meant that Michael and I very seriously needed to have a conversation. I called Michael from Lincoln multiple times on multiple days, leaving multiple messages, and he never picked up. So I've got an employee whose enthusiasm for the project has been consistently declining, who is actively seeking other projects, and who isn't returning my phone calls. To me it seems pretty clear that Michael wanted out. He finally emailed me 2 days before I was to fly back to LA to pick up the car, and the way that I read the email, it only further confirmed that he wanted out of the project. So, in my response, I let him out. Now, to me, at the time, none of this was particularly ugly. It all seemed to make sense. I thought that it went over very cordially. I thought we were still friends. When we went back to Los Angeles, we even stayed with Michael for a few nights. I mean, we hung out. We had a good time. He invited me to a Magic the Gathering tournament. I mean, I thought that everything was fine. He had 1.5 million opportunities to air his grievances to me in person so that we could work them out in person, and he never did. Even after we left Los Angeles, I mean, he could have called me, he could have emailed me, he could have tweeted me, he could have texted me, he could have done any number of things, but instead he just decided to post on Formspring. I mean, that's pretty lame no matter how you slice it. I'm not entirely without blame in this situation. I mean, I could have communicated things a whole heck of a lot better, and I know I'm not the perfect employer. That's pretty obvious at this point, but I mean, what I can say is that I've learned from the situation, and now I'm just doing the best that I can to pick up the pieces. So that's my side of the story. Hopefully fewer of you hate me now, but I'll tell you what. I know that a lot of you guys hate this beard a lot, so as a token of appreciation of our friendship, I guess, let's get rid of this thing. My face is cold.
Real quick before I go, I'd like to give a great big thank you to today's sponsors, HP and Intel. Throughout the history of laptop computers, the way in which people use laptop computers has changed throughout the history of laptop computers. And in this day and age, while we certainly still use them for word processing and internet browsing, they are as much our own personal jukeboxes as they are anything else. One huge drawback to a lot of laptops these days, however, is that they don't handle playing music properly. And I'm not just talking about the fact that most laptops have puny little speakers either. No, I mean laptops don't process music properly. See, music is all about emotion. Music is all about how you feel it. And if you're listening to your music on a crap-top laptop, I mean, you're not hearing the emotion and the music the way that the artist intended. That, however, is where the HP DV7T laptop comes in. Dr. Dre brought this problem to the attention of the fine folks at HP, and they teamed up to solve it, and they pretty well did. They came up with a line of laptops with what's called Beats Audio inside. This HP DV7T here has a built-in subwoofer for optimized studio quality sound, but this is about a whole lot more than just having a nice speaker. The way that these laptops actually process the music is different. This is about hardware and software. Also, with the built-in Intel Core i5 processor, these laptops won't even blink when it comes to playing the latest game, watching an HD movie, or managing your massive music library. Woo! HP and Intel. Also, as a part of this HP sponsorship, we are looking for you guys to submit some musically oriented tasks. So head on over to dan30.com, submit some tasks that have something to do with music, and on November 29th, we will be announcing 3 musically oriented tasks as finalists in this whole thing. Anywho, that just about does it for me for today. Thank you for watching this episode of Dan 3.0. Hopefully you'll tune in again in the future.